Hello, everybody. How are you? Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. I am about to break the internet right now because I'm streaming on Crowdcast and I'm surprise streaming on Instagram right now. So, hi, Instagram people. I bet you didn't know I was going live today because that was not part of the plan. But thank you so much for being here, guys. Super, super excited about this topic. We're going to be talking about wealth building. Yes, Soledad's over here in the chat saying she's always living La Vida Loca. That is a fact. But hi, everybody. My name is Janice Torres Rodriguez, and I am creator and host of the Quiero, Dinero podcast. And we're going to be talking tonight about how to build wealth, right? I want to know, first off, if you can put it in the chat, when you think of the word wealth, what pops into your mind? I'm curious. So when you think of the word wealth, let me know what actually pops in your head. I'm curious because I could tell you, for me, wealth is something that for the longest time felt like it was for other people. Not something, it's not really a word that I remember growing up, learning about. Janai says freedom. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Safety and time for my loved ones and me. I see a common theme. Comfort over here on Instagram. Absolutely. Abundance. That's a great one. Empowering, security, freedom of time and financial security. Y'all already know. So it's like, it sounds like something we want, right? But the question is like, how do we get it? I think that's the thing that confuses most people. They're just like, okay, I want to be wealthy, but what the hell does that mean? So let's talk about that tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you guys are watching on Instagram, I'm actually broadcasting through Crowdcast right now. Sold out room. So if you want to watch the replay of this with the slideshow, I'm actually going to repost on my YouTube channel. So if you don't already subscribe to Yo Quiero Dinero, go to YouTube and subscribe over there. All right, let's find the share screen button over here and let's get this going. So we're going to be talking tonight. And I'm going to put a little graphic up here on Instagram too, because I'm just doing the most. We're going to talk about 8 steps to build wealth, or as I like to call it, securing the bag 101. So I'm going to give you guys 8 steps that you need to be doing. If you're not already doing all 8 of these, you're not really grasping all of the tools that you're going to need in order to build wealth, because it's not only just about 1 or 2, it's a multifaceted approach. Okay, so just a quick disclaimer. Any information that we're talking about here tonight is for information and education purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, tax, legal, or investing advice. So always consult with a financial professional before making any decisions, okay? I have to say that. Don't sue me. I am just educating you. I cannot tell you what to invest in. I cannot open accounts for you. That is left to the professionals that go to school for a lot of different licensing and degrees and whatnot. And that's not me. I'm here to educate and to break down topics that feel really friggin' foreign in a way that it's actually going to, make you feel like, yeah, I could do this too. All right. So before we get started, for anybody who's just hopping on, I am the hostess with the mostest, doing the mostest all the time. Janice Torres Rodriguez, financial educator and creator of the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast. What is that? That is a podcast for Latinas and people of color, so that we can talk about money. Because I don't know about you, but money was not something that I grew up learning about at all. The only things I learned about money were that it was hard to get, it was a very stressful topic, cause of a lot of fights, and there was never enough. And so when you grow up thinking about that, like, and that's your frame of thought when you're thinking about money and how you're, associating your relationship with money, that can get really freaking toxic. So, we have to unlearn some of those things. All right, so you might have seen me in a couple different media outlets, Next Advisor, BuzzFeed, and the like. It's been an amazing year of growth for the podcast, so I'm super excited. And it just goes to show that people care about this topic about money and they want to learn. So why not create platforms that we can do that? So I'm super excited for all the support that you guys have been giving me this past year, growing this podcast. It's amazing. And I'm hoping to add a couple more outlets to this real soon. So stay on the lookout for that. Okay, so what are we doing here? What are we doing here, guys? So we're going to be talking about the 8 essential steps that you need to be taking to build generational wealth, okay? And I see here on the comments in Instagram, I was afraid to look at my finances. It made me feel stressed. Girl, I understand. Why would you not feel stressed? Because what the hell is going on? You don't know, right? So we're going to talk about what you need to actually be looking at. We're going to do a Q&A, and then I have a special surprise for you guys, but you have to wait till the end. All right, so let's get into this because we got a lot of ground to cover. And, this is going to feel like a marathon because every time you think like, okay, that's it, it's going to be something else. And I think for a lot of people, that is what feels really stressful about financial education. It always feels like I'm never going to get good enough at this. I'm never going to understand all the things that I have to do. But when you break it down to steps and you understand how these steps are connected, it makes it a lot easier. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a budget. Okay. I know everybody hates that word. And I don't know who came up with the word budget, but it's not sexy. It sounds like not pleasant. And so that's why people hate it, I think. And because it sounds like something that should be restrictive. But a spending plan, also known as a budget, like you can reframe these words. If you don't like the word budget, call it a spending plan. I think that sounds super empowering, right? When you say, I have a spending plan, it's like, okay, sis, like you putting thought into this shit. I love that. So a spending plan, aka a budget, is not meant to be strict. It's a guide to help you take control of your financial future and ultimately reach your goals. Because honestly, like, how do you reach any goal without a plan? If you decided one day, like, I'm going to go be an astronaut, and that was the end of the goal, like, what are you going to do? Right? So you need to understand what are the steps I'm going to take to get to this place that I want to be. So budget is my second favorite B word. I love you. Okay. Money coming in is the first part of your budget, right? So we're talking about paychecks, tips. If you have loans and you're getting money, even though it sounds counterintuitive, like money that you're getting for a loan, yeah, you got to pay that back, but you're getting it initially. Scholarships, child support, side hustle income, your grandma giving you $20 for Christmas, whatever. That's all money coming in. Then money going out is regular monthly bills, right? So we're talking about housing, groceries, utilities, clothing, childcare. The list goes on and on. And then your goals are actually the third part of your plan, right? Your emergency fund, being able to replace your car if something happens. Maybe a family trip. Maybe you want to go to Bora Bora. That's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do luxurious ass things with your money, but you need a plan in order to make that happen. So let's talk a little bit about the main budgeting methods that exist. And, the great thing about budget is it's not one size fits all. It is literally like pick something. If it doesn't work, try another one, combine them. You can make hybrids of these things. Like, the sky's the limit, honestly, guys. So if you feel like you tried one way of budgeting and you were like, nah, this ain't for me, I can't budget, that's not actually true. You just haven't found the right tool for your personality. Like, I'll tell you right now, zero-based budget, can't fuck with it. Not for me. I do not have the patience to be counting my $3 coffee. Like, I'm not going to do it. So if I'm not going to follow that method, like, I have to accept that. That's who I am. And I got to find something else that's going to make me still be able to accomplish my goals. So the first budget that most people learn about is the 50-30-20, which essentially you break down your income into three categories. So you're doing 50% necessities. We're talking about food, rent. If transportation is a necessity for you, then it's that. Your utilities, so you got the light and the water on and all that. That's your 50% of your budget should be allocated to that. Then we have the 30% of wants. So like I said, that trip to Bora Bora, you want to upgrade your car. You want to give your sister a Louis Vuitton, whatever. That is the wants. And then 20% is what you should be putting towards savings and debt at a minimum. And a lot of people flip these around. So a lot of people will do 50% necessities, 30% savings and debt, and 20% wants. It's really up to you to decide. And, I think like coronavirus has definitely made it easy to save money if you're lucky enough to still be working, because there ain't shit to spend money on. I mean, the only thing I know I've been doing way too much of is like buying food. So, but we're not going to talk about that. Okay, so the next one is the envelope system. So it sounds like what it is. You're literally creating envelopes that are categorized for different expenses. So for instance, your rent, your groceries, your car payment, your Christmas fund, whatever you want. You designate a specific amount of money for each envelope, put the amount of money in there, and you're only allowed to use that money in that envelope for that specific category. So once your envelope is empty, that's it. You can do that with physical envelopes. You can do that with sinking funds. I use Ally to do that. Capital One also has, I believe, this bucketing feature that you can do. And if you want a digital tool, you can use the Good Budget app as well. So there's different ways to implement the envelope system. Whatever works for you, that's fine. There's no right or wrong way. Okay, so pay yourself first. Zero-based budget is blocked a little by your... Oh, my bad, y'all. Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so pay yourself first. That's actually the budget method that I use more than anything. So I actually auto invest. I max out my 401k, max out my IRA, max out my HSA before I'm even like doing anything else with my money. And that is honestly what's worked for me, because I'm like, if it's in my bank account, like I'm going to spend it. But if I allocate it before it even goes into my bank account to my retirement goals and my savings goals and my emergency fund and all that stuff, then I got to figure out how to live on the rest. Okay. So guys, real quick, I don't want to miss your questions in the chat. So just put them in the Q&A section. If you're on Instagram, you can put your question in there. And if you're on the Crowdcast, there's an ask a question button on the bottom. Put them in there and we'll go through them at the end, because I just want to make sure that your question doesn't get lost. They're super important to me. And yes, go ahead and answer each other's questions in the chat while we're at. Help me out, y'all. Okay, so like I was saying, pay yourself first. You decide how much you want to set aside from your income for your savings goals like retirement and your emergency fund, and then you figure out how to live on the rest. And that just allows you to not have to be like crunching every single number. So I know, like, if I make $5,000 a month and I want to save 50% of my income, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to figure out how to live off the other $2,500. It's really that simple. And then the zero-based budget. So you might have heard about that. It's very popular, especially with followers of Dave Ramsey, or people who've been introduced to the world of personal finance by Dave Ramsey. So basically, you take your monthly income, you use every dollar in a deliberate way. You account for every single cent that is coming in and out of your accounts until you are at zero. And Soledad is a professional at this. Like, y'all need to really watch, like, go and follow her on Instagram, because she has the patience of a saint to be doing this stuff. And so there's some popular tools like YNAB and EveryDollar that can help you follow a zero-based budget if you want a digital tool. Otherwise, you can be real, like, old school and do the Excel spreadsheet, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so when we're talking about wealth building, there is a mindset that's associated with being able to do this stuff. It's not just like, yeah, I'm going to wake up one day and we're going to be wealthy and we're not going to do any kind of internal work. That's not how it works. Okay, so building wealth is not hoarding all your money and never having any fun until you're too old to truly enjoy yourself. Like, that's not a vibe. Okay, so what wealth building is actually, and if you follow Ramit, he's a really famous author. The book is called, someone tell me in the chat, please. I'm having like a freaking moment right now. I Will Teach You How to Be Rich, something like that. I Will Teach You to Be Rich. He talks about you need to spend money on the things that matter to you. Like, abundantly, unapologetically, think about your values and your priorities and focus on those items when you're making your spending plan. The hell did I just do? Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's not about like, I'm just gonna live on ramen noodles and never have fun with my life. Like, that's not what becoming wealthy should be. Like, why the hell would anybody want to do that, right? So if going on vacation to you is important, build that into your budget. If giving to charity is important, put that in your budget. If you want to send your kids to college and they don't have to pay for anything, put it in your budget. Like, there's nothing wrong with spending your money. You work damn hard for it. But the problem is that we get mindless about money. And then it's like, oh shit, I made $100,000. What do I have to show for it? I don't know, because I don't know where any of my money went. So if you don't want a big house, don't buy a big house just because your parents are telling you to buy a big house. Like, there's no right or wrong way to spend money. It's just really about reflecting on what is important to you. Okay. Excellent point. Soledad is saying even during her debt-free journey, she still threw parties. Why? Because that's what's important to her. She wants to be able to have that time with her family. That's what money is for. It's literally to enjoy your freaking life. So don't feel bad about wanting to do that. Just do it in a way that makes sense to you. Okay, so let's talk about this elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about debt because it's stressful, right? But if you're going to build wealth, paying off high interest rate debt, you have to do it. I mean, you're literally paying interest for the privilege of having debt. Like, think about that for a second. You're giving Chase or Bank of America or these companies your money in exchange for allowing you to hold debt. And most of the time when we're getting into high interest rate credit card debt is for one of two reasons. It's because you didn't have an emergency fund, or maybe you did have a little bit of emergency fund, but your emergency got so damn big that you couldn't deal with it, right? Or you might just be like me and you're just like, I'll figure out how to pay for it later. Because that was me with travel for the longest time. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna book a vacation and we'll figure it out later. And then $10,000 later, I'm like, oh, now I can't afford to go anywhere. So two of the main methods that people use, and again, no right or wrong, debt snowball, debt avalanche. You probably have heard about these. The main difference is with the debt avalanche, you're making minimum payments on all your debt, and then you're using any remaining money to pay off your debt with the highest interest rate. Okay. And so that can obviously result in you saving more money because you're tackling the interest rate that is highest and then working your way down. And then the debt snowball method is making minimum payments on all your debt again, and then paying off the smallest debt. So the smallest quantity. So let's say you have $500 in one credit card, $1,000 in another one, and $2,000. You're not looking at the interest rate. You're just paying off the $500 first. And the reason for that is because it makes people feel like, I can do this. Once you kind of get the one ball rolling, it's like, think about a snowball, right? You start getting more motivated because you're seeing your progress. So pro tip, guys, and this is how I became debt free. 0% balance transfers. Now, balance transfers, if you lost connection, just rejoin the workshop in case anybody's having connectivity issues. So I use 0% balance transfers to consolidate my credit card debt. And so what does that mean? A balance transfer is when you take credit card debt and you move it to, usually it's a new card that you have to open, and you get a promotional period of 18, 24 months, somewhere in between that range. In exchange for transferring your debt over, the credit card will be like, I'll give you 18 months, no interest. You can pay this off. I will charge you a small transfer fee, which is called a balance transfer fee, which can be anywhere between 3 to 5% of the balance that you're transferring over. And in exchange for that fee, I'll give you this time to pay off the debt. Now, they're assuming that you've got so much debt that you're not even going to be able to pay it off in those 18 and 24 months or whatever the promo period is. But if you are smart and you do the calculations and you figure out that, yes, I can afford to pay this off in that amount of time, you're going to pay off debt basically, not 100% free. Sometimes you can get lucky and get a card that has 0% balance transfer fee and 0% interest, which I have done that in the past. And then it's like, you don't pay anything. You just are, paying off your debt and not getting caught up in any more interest on these credit cards. So as long as you have a plan to pay that balance off before the promo period expires, go for it. Why not? It worked for me. Okay, so create an emergency fund. If you don't already have one, or if you do have one, make sure that you're funding it, okay? I think 2020 has been the year that people are like, you know what? That's why they said to start an emergency fund, guys. Because this year was a bitch, okay? The emergencies were emergencies. And they were real emergencies. And they were like losing your job type emergency. And that's literally why you save money, right? Because life happens. Shit is going to happen. That is one guarantee. Two things you can guarantee that are going to happen in life. Well, maybe three. One, you're always going to have to pay taxes if you're a normal human being. You're not Jeff Bezos. Two, you're always going to have an emergency at some point in your life. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to get sick. Your car's going to get in, you're going to have to replace something. Maybe there's going to be a hurricane. I live in Florida. My roof could blow off. Who the hell knows? And three, you're going to die. Those are the three guarantees in life, okay? So we can prepare for our taxes, we can prepare for the emergency, and we can prepare for our deaths, which we're going to talk about later. I know it sounds crazy and morbid, but it's a reality, y'all. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, but let me get back on track right here. So an emergency fund is a great way, obviously, to plan for the unexpected without needing to turn into debt. And, you know, the sad reality is that almost half of Americans cannot handle a $400 emergency without getting into debt. So knowing that, like, if you can remove yourself from that pool of people, you're already one step ahead. So I like to tell people, aim 6 to 12 months worth of expenses, not your income, your expenses. Now, if you're spending every single dollar that you have to live, then that is good. Your expenses is going to be your whole income. But like for me, I keep my expenses relatively low because I'm cheap. You know, I don't like spending money on a lot of things. I don't buy expensive clothes, all these things. So my expenses represent maybe like 30% of my overall income. So I'm going to save that times 6 for a 6-month emergency fund. And I like telling people to use a high yield savings account because you're getting extra interest on your money. So online bank accounts like Ally or HSBC, SoFi Money, there's a million of them. Just pick one. Right now, the interest rates are garbage, but I mean, it is what it is. It's better than having like Bank of America give you 0.001% on your money and you're making like, 25 cents over the next 10 years. And so for me, what has honestly worked when it comes to budgeting too, you should have at least 5 bank accounts. And you might be thinking like, girl, who the hell has time to be like tracking all these bank accounts? You don't necessarily need to have 5 actual accounts. You can have one account with sub accounts in it. And so Ally is a great option for this. Now, the 5 accounts that I recommend that you have to have, one for your everyday expenses. So we're talking about gas, groceries, personal care, whatever you want. The second one is for your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, your fixed expenses, things that are not going to change. Your student loans, your your insurance. Those things should be separated from your everyday expenses because if you have them all lumped together, maybe you go on a shopping spree and then next thing you know, you can't pay your rent because you didn't separate the money. So it's about making sure that the fixed expenses that you need to like continue to maintain your quality of life, do not let them be subject to you spending and going, stir crazy on the weekend buying stuff on Amazon. And then 3 savings accounts is what I honestly recommend. One for your emergency fund, you want to keep that completely separate. One for your short-term savings goals, so anything under a year. So like your vacation, maybe you want to upgrade your iPhone, whatever. That should be your short-term savings goal, and that money should be separate from your emergency fund, and it should also be separate from your long-term savings goals. So maybe you want to buy a house. Maybe you want to buy a new car. The things that you're saving over a longer period of time, you should be saving for those in a separate account. So let's review that real quick. 5 different bank accounts or one account with sub accounts, everyday expenses, fixed expenses, short-term savings goals, long-term savings goals, and emergency fund. And emergency fund is hard to do. Okay. Like when you think about saving that much money, it can feel like, you know what, I'm not even going to do this shit because like, what is the point? It feels exhausting. But plugging away every month, it really does make a difference. Okay. And we're going to talk about different ways that you can accelerate this process. Okay. So investing is the next step, right? Everybody loves to talk about investing. It's like so sexy. Everybody's like, oh my God, I'm going to make like passive income and I'm going to live off of dividends, and nobody knows what the hell they're talking about, but it's fine. But investing is super important because that is honestly, if you're not investing, you're not truly building wealth. And we're going to talk about why. So before we talk about that, I just want to do a quick overview of all of the different options and this is not a comprehensive list, but some of the options that you do have depending on your employment situation. If you're a business owner, things like that, you can have access to a 401k, 403b, a thrift savings plan, an IRA, a health savings account, college savings plans, solo 401k, SEP IRAs, brokerage accounts. It's a lot. There are a lot of different options, but I always tell people like start off with the easy stuff. if you have a 401k or a 403b or equivalent through your job, just start doing that. And the reason why is because those are one of the few accounts that you can actually automate, like auto invest. So they're going to take money out of your paycheck, they're going to invest it how you see fit, and that's money that you can't spend because it's locked away waiting for your retirement, which is great because, I don't know about you, but for me, I need that discipline of like, just take it away from me. I don't want to see it because then I'm going to spend it. So that's a great start when you're thinking about, becoming an investor. Tax advantage accounts actually help your money grow more efficiently. They give you tax advantages. That's why they're called that, either now or in the future, and they can make a really big difference down the road. But that's not the only thing you should be looking at, right? Because when we're talking about investing, you have to diversify, which is just a fancy word of saying you got to spread out your risk and your assets across different areas. So that way you're getting different levels of return depending on how much you diversify your portfolio. So maybe you want to be a stock market investor and you're going to invest through your job, and you'll do an index fund or an ETF and just get a really nice big basket of stocks through your job. But maybe you also want to open a brokerage account and you want to buy like individual stocks. Maybe there's some companies that you're super passionate about and you want to invest in, and you're like, that's fine. Maybe you want to buy real estate. Maybe you want to become a landlord. Maybe you want to, have Airbnbs, whatever. Investing is going to help your wealth grow faster than letting it sit in a savings account. And this is how much faster. So for the people on Instagram, you're not going to see this graphic, but we're looking at a chart of money under your mattress versus saving versus investing. And we're talking about what $20,000 would look like in 30 years, depending on where you put it. If you put $20,000 under your mattress and leave it there for 30 years, it's still going to be $20,000, but the buying power is going to be less because of inflation. So that $20,000 is not going to be able to buy you what it can buy you today. That's just the reality of how this, the economy works. Money has less buying power over time, and that's why things get more expensive. So if you're putting your money in a savings account at 2% interest, which really doesn't exist anymore, unless you find like, the T-Mobile savings account that I heard has 4% interest, which I'm still like, I don't know why they're doing that, but if you're a T-Mobile customer, go get that interest. So at 2% interest, after 30 years, your $20,000 will be transformed to about $36,000. Not a lot of extra money for letting that shit sit there for like pretty much your entire adult life. Okay? If you invest it, and let's say a 5.48% annual return, which is pretty low given the fact that this year's returns on the S&P 500, I think, are somewhere between 20 and 25%. So let's go based on the average. 10 to 12% is what the S&P 500 has returned over the span of however long it's existed. You, instead of having $20,000 after 30 years, you'll have almost $100,000. Okay. So that just shows the power of investing in compound interest and putting your money to work. Okay. So if you're like putting the money under the mattress or just hoarding money in a savings account, it's not going to happen, guys. That's just the reality of it. All right. So protecting your assets with insurance is the next step. And you might be thinking like, what does this have to do with like money? Well, the reality of it is that insurance is what's going to protect the most valuable things that you own. So think about it, right? Your life is usually protected, or your health is protected by your health insurance. If you can't get health insurance, or if you don't have health insurance and something happens to you and you can't afford to work, guess what? That's going to mess up your entire plan. If something happens to your house and for whatever reason you don't have homeowners insurance, how are you going to replace that house? Most of us cannot, buy a house in cash. So if something were to happen that's catastrophic, insurance is really the only way that you're going to be able to protect yourself. So think about like how much it would cost lump sum if you had to replace your car, or if you had to use money to support your family if you had a disability, right? Things like short-term disability insurance, long-term disability insurance. Do you have access to those at work? Are you getting the coverage that you need? I just upped my life insurance because after talking to my CFP, she's like, you're undercovered. And as someone who is the primary breadwinner in my family, like I can't afford to be underinsured, because that's not only going to have an impact on me, because not being able to provide, but that's also going to have an impact on the people that rely on me. So you have to think about that. The right insurance coverage is going to reduce your financial risk. It's going to leave you free to build wealth with your money that would otherwise go towards replacing the things that you've lost. And so one thing that I do want to touch on is life insurance, right? Everybody's always like, oh, what am I going to do? They're telling me I need life insurance. I don't really think I need it. I'm 30 years old. Like, why am I thinking about dying? Guys, the sad reality of it is that like you never know what's going to happen. I had a girlfriend of mine. We've grown up together. She 34 years old. Her husband was 39. He went out for a run. He had just dropped his kids off at school. She was on a plane to Costa Rica, got a phone call from the school. The kids never got picked up. He never came home from the run. He had a heart attack, and somebody found his body a couple of hours later. You don't expect that to happen. But the reality of it is that like shit can happen. And if you have people that rely on you, you need life insurance. Okay. So I definitely recommend looking at term life insurance. That is something that you pay for a certain amount of time. You can get a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year, anywhere in between there. And it should only be to cover your working years. I think there's a misperception that like you should get a whole life insurance policy that covers you forever. Honestly, that doesn't make sense to me, because at the age of 65, which is typically when most like the term life insurance policies end, or that's usually when people stop paying for them because they become somewhat prohibitively expensive, you should have the wealth already that you're going to leave to your family once you're not here anymore. The whole point of term life insurance is to protect you during your working years, so that if something were to happen and your earning years get cut short, your family doesn't lose out on all of that income that you would have generated and that wealth that you would have built. Okay? All right. So, estate planning. This is something that is relatively new for me, in the sense that it's something that I've had to tackle this year. Why? Because I'm a business owner now. I have things that I need to protect. I have wealth that I need to protect. And I actually had a conversation with my parents on Thanksgiving where I helped them set up their estate plan, because I'm like, yo, y'all are like 60 years old. Like, what are we doing? You need to get your shit together, because I don't know what you want. You haven't told me anything, where anything is, what you want me to do. God forbid something happens. So these are important conversations that you should be having with your family, especially during this time of year. Okay. If you're going to be together, whether it's virtually or in person, talk about this stuff. Do your parents have an estate plan? I mean, really, most of the time you'll find out, no, they have no plan. So first, let's talk about what the elements of an estate plan are. The first thing you probably all already know about this is the last will and testament, right? That's the thing that everybody's like, yeah, you need a will. But it's so much more than that. We're going to be talking about revocable living trusts, beneficiary designations, durable power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys, and living wills. They're not the same thing. Provision for digital assets, your letter of intent, and list of important documents. All of this should be part of your estate plan. And pro tip, I found out that my job offers legal insurance, which sounds like what it is. It's insurance to cover legal expenses. So I was able to get my estate plan drafted by a lawyer, completely covered, no charge. I think I pay $400 for the year for that coverage. So if your job offers legal insurance, get that shit. Okay? Because it's going to save you a ton of money. An estate plan can cost anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000, depending on how complicated your situation is. Okay? So first thing, last will and testament. Your last will and testament gives you the power to decide what's in the best interest of your children and your pets after they're gone. That's the big selling point of a last will and testament. It's not the document that you should be using to pass things on, like bank accounts, real estate. We'll talk about that in a second. The last will and testament also helps you determine what's going to happen with possessions that have like a financial or sentimental value, like art, jewelry, other valuables that you can't necessarily like call a bank and be like, hi, can you put this under Janice Like, what are they going to do? They're going to write your name on the back of the painting? No, that's not how it works. So you need a last will and testament to actually designate those things that you can't actually call a bank and be like, hi, can you title this under a person or a trust? That's what your last will and testament are. Your living revocable trust. That is a written document that's going to determine how your assets are handled after you die. And when I say assets, I'm talking about real estate, bank accounts, investments. And the thing that's great about a revocable living trust is that you can modify it as you want. Like if you want to update it every year, you can do that. There's also one that's known as an irrevocable living trust. And the big thing about that is that because it's irrevocable, which means it cannot be changed after it's created, that's a way for people that have like a lot of assets that have tax consequences to separate themselves from those assets so that they have less tax liabilities. You don't need to be worried about that right now. Living revocable trust is something that everybody should have. And don't take my word for it. Susie Orman says the same shit. And she's been around a little longer than me, so I take her word. Beneficiary designations. So when you're doing your annual enrollment for your job, if you work and you have access to health insurance and investment accounts and all those things, they're going to ask you to designate beneficiaries. So you're usually going to have a primary and then a backup. You have to make sure that those designations are made. Why? Because they actually supersede what you would put in a will. So if for whatever reason you put that you wanted your investment account to go to your mom, you put her as a beneficiary, but your last will and testament says that it goes to your husband, it's actually going to go to your mom because the beneficiary designation that you put with that account is what is going to be honored. So, just make sure that the things align if you don't want conflict later. Durable power of attorney, that's also known as a financial power of attorney. And that's actually the document that allows you to choose someone to act on your behalf financially and legally in the event that you are incapacitated and you can't make decisions. So if you, God forbid, something happens to you, you're in an accident, you are not able to make decisions, the durable power of attorney is going to help you designate someone to take care of things like paying your bills, managing your investments. Say you are in the middle of a real estate transaction. That's going to allow them to finish that transaction, whatever you want. It's important to have that. And it's also important to have a healthcare power of attorney and a living will. So those are two separate documents. First, the healthcare power of attorney helps dictate who's going to make medical decisions for you in the event that you become incapacitated, right? So the durable power of attorney is for financial and legal. The healthcare power of attorney is strictly for medical decisions. And then the living will is basically where you decide what you would want done, what types of care you would want to be given or you don't want to be given in case you can't communicate that in the future. So, for instance, my mom, she is a cancer survivor. She said, if something were to happen to me and I have terminal cancer, I don't want anybody resuscitating me. I'm like, okay, that's your decision. Like, I'm not going to fight you on what you want for your, end of life care if it ever got to that point. So that is important to know because otherwise, if something happens to your loved one or something happens to you and you don't have that in writing, nobody's going to know. Like, you hear stories about people who have been in a vegetative state for 20, 30 years. And why? Because there's no document saying that they didn't want that. So if that's not something that you would want done, and that's not quality of life for you, then you have to have that in a living will. Next up is the provision for digital assets. So it's important to realize that we are creating a lot of content that needs to be reconciled in the event that something happens to you. Digital content like your computers, your photos, your Twitter, your Facebook, your passwords, all those things. You should have those somewhere that whoever you're putting in charge of these important documents, they know where to find stuff, right? A letter of intent is also an important part of your estate plan. And so that's something that you can literally just like put the instructions for like what you want at your funeral or your memorial service. The letter of intent is for any kind of like requests that you have that don't belong in your will. So if you want somebody playing like Biggie and Tupac like at your funeral service, like put in a letter of intent. You know, if you want everybody wearing white, whatever. Do whatever you want to do. Just make sure that the instructions are there so that people know. And so your list of important documents for your estate plan, life insurance policies, annuities, your pension, retirement accounts, bank accounts, marriage records, divorce records, birth and adoption certificates, real estate deeds if you own any real estate, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, bills, account numbers, all of that stuff. Think about all of the different things that you would need somebody to manage if something were to happen to you. If it feels important, just put it in there. Better to be safe than sorry. Okay, so there's one more thing missing. And you're probably thinking to yourself like, yes, I want to do all these things. I want to pay off debt. I want to invest. I want to build wealth. I want to like ball out of control. But I don't have money for this. Like I don't know what to do. So, earning more and diversifying your income is also an essential part of building wealth. It's not just about saving. It's not just about cutting costs. If you really want to build wealth, you cannot focus on scarcity. You cannot focus on cutting this and that, and I'm going to cut everything out of my budget and live on ramen, and we'll figure it out later. What you actually usually need is more money. So you have a couple options, right? If you work and you love what you do for work, make yourself valuable so you're eligible for promotions and raises. If you're not being adequately compensated at your job, look for a new job that pays more. You don't need to have loyalty to an employer that is not properly compensating you. Like that just is what it is. Or you start a business or a side hustle and you start making more money. So my own side hustle journey has been kind of insane. I started my food blog in 2013, and 2014 I got fired from my job. So then I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I had like 3 months to myself to really figure out, like, I want to make this a business. Like, I want to legitimize this. I want to learn how people make money blogging. And I started taking it seriously. 2015, I started refining my content. I started defining my niche. And by 2016, I had made my first real income, which, full disclosure, I didn't know anything about how to do any of this. I didn't know how to start a food blog. I didn't know how people monetize these things. No clue. So in 2016, I made my first real earnings, about $2,200. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, I'm just creating recipes online and like people are, I'm getting money from Google. This is awesome. 2017, I made $10,000. 2018, I made $21,000. 2019, I made $46,000. And I started diversifying my income streams. And 2020, I'm on track to reach close to $100,000 in side hustle income. That is on top of my 6-figure 9-to-5 job. Kind of insane. All right. So some of the things that side hustles have allowed me to do is earn over $165,000 over the past 6 years, all while working 9 to 5. Well, for the most part, working from home. Like all these side hustles I do from working from home. For the most part, I was able to pay off $39,000 of debt in 17 months because of side hustles. I was able to aggressively invest. And at the age of 35, I have a net worth of over $200,000. Whereas a couple of years ago, I was negative like $400,000 because I bought a house because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was miserable. So I sold it. Side hustles have allowed me to help fund my niece's 529 plan, so that I can save her from the student loan debt that I got into. Fully funding my 6-month emergency fund, remaining debt-free. I was able to start a down payment fund to buy my parents their retirement home. That's a big goal of mine. Without side hustle income, could not do that. And most importantly, being able to pursue financial independence and early retirement by age 45. Like without side hustles, I will literally tell you, I would not have been able to do any of this. And I think, when we think about why is a side hustle so damn important? It sounds like a lot of work. And yeah, it's a lot of work. But A side hustle is actually, it can be the key to you achieving financial freedom sooner than with a 9 to 5. And I'll tell you that because, like, hello, if you can double your income with a side hustle, you can cut in half the time that it is going to take you to reach any of the goals that you want to do. It's just math, right? If you have debt like student loans, car payments, credit debt, credit card debt, mortgages, this is probably preventing you from having the type of freedom in your life that you want. That's just the reality of it. Like, how many people are postponing things like marriages and having babies because of fucking student loans? Like, that's crazy. We're literally making decisions about our lives and our futures because of money. That's wild. And if you're barely making ends meet with your day job, a side hustle is literally going to be your ticket to being less stressed out about your stability. There's so much awareness right now that these stable careers that we thought we had, they're not so stable anymore in the middle of a pandemic. There's people whose entire lives have been uprooted because of thinking that relying on a single source of income is safe, and it's not, right? So, okay, you're probably like, okay, that's great, whatever, but I don't have $1,000 or thousands of dollars to start a business. And the reality of it is that a lot of online businesses can be started for free using social media. I know people who have built 6-figure businesses and they don't even have a website. They're literally using things like Instagram and TikTok and all these free platforms to reach people. And so you can start a business for less than $100. Go on my YouTube and watch the series called The Side Hustle Summit. You'll find someone named Liz Enriquez from Ambitious Adulting, and she breaks down a bunch of different businesses that she started for less than $100. And I'll tell you, as a blogger, you're going to spend maybe $125 a year to start a blog. I'm pretty sure you spend more than $125 a year on your gym subscription or your Peloton. So, I mean, it's just like, that's not really an argument for me. Another thing that people are like, oh yeah, that's great. I want to start a business, but I don't want to sell things. I am not an extrovert. I don't want to ask people for money. I literally made over $14,000 last month selling nothing. And if you don't believe me, go on my Instagram stories. I get paid to host ads on my food blog. I'm not selling anything other than a space on my website. $14,000 of real cash money. So if you don't want to sell things, you don't have to sell things. Content creators are the type of people that, you just put things out on the internet and you can get paid for them. So if you're asking yourself like, okay, fine, I want to start a side hustle because I feel like I want $14,000 in, ad revenue or whatever it is that you want to do, but you don't know where to start. And so I want to tell you guys really quickly about my new project, my new baby that has kept me up a lot of sleepless nights. It's the Side Hustle Starter Kit. This is my brand new digital course where I am dumping 7 years worth of knowledge into a digital product that you can take at your own pace. And I'm going to teach you every single thing that I have learned about how to do this. Because for me, I had no effing clue. I did not know how to start a blog. I did not know how to start a podcast. I did not know how to become an influencer. I did not know how to make money online. I was convinced that the only way that you can make money online is by like signing up for Avon or Mary Kay and selling people like shit that they don't need. And that's not true. It is not true. You can actually make plenty of money online being things like content creator, social media manager, a blogger, a coach, life coach, financial coach, business coach. There are so many different things that you can do online. And I am breaking down all of the different steps that you need to be taking into account in order to start your business. And, that's another thing. Like, a side hustle is a business, guys. Like, you're creating generational wealth when you create a side hustle. So don't get it twisted because it's real money. So just to give you a quick overview of the course, I am breaking down all of these different facets of starting a side hustle, how to choose one that you actually love, how to embrace your entrepreneurial mindset, how to set your pricing and get paid what you deserve, how to market yourself, build your brand, how to balance your time. Time management is a real thing when you're starting a business and doing the 9-to-5 thing, how to manage your finances, your taxes. If you want to make the leap from a side hustler to a full-time entrepreneur, and a list of free and low cost business tools that I use to save me money because I'm cheap as a business owner. Like, I don't want to spend money on shit that's not going to bring value to my life and to my business. So I'm going to give you a list of all the things that I use. And on top of that, because that's not enough, right? I'm a masochist. I really love, like, if I'm gonna put my name behind something, it's because this shit's gonna be so much value, like it doesn't make any sense, and it's fine because I do this more than anything to educate and empower people and give them the information that I wish I had when I started this whole thing. So on top of all that stuff, we're going to be talking about LLCs. Everybody wants to know, when do you open one? How do you do it? Why does it matter? We're going to talk about that. Trademarks, how to protect your brand. I actually had to send a infringement letter to someone recently that was trying to use Yo Quiero Dinero for a podcast. But if I didn't know about trademarks, how the hell am I going to protect my brand? Okay. A bonus investing for entrepreneurs class, because there are actually investment vehicles specifically for people that have side hustles and businesses that you can invest in that are not open to people that have W-2 jobs. And on top of all that, because I don't want you to feel like I'm just going to throw all this information at you and you're going to figure it out, because that's what I had to do. Okay. An exclusive 8 weeks of group coaching with me. So as you go through the material, you're going to say, I don't fucking get this. I need answers. We're going to hop on a weekly basis. You can ask me whatever you want. I will help you work through whatever issue you're confronting coming through going through the material. Because it's a lot, right? It can feel like, who can I talk to about this? So you can talk to me. So this is so much information, guys. And when I tell you that I have been literally going to bed at like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning every day building out this course, it's because there's just so much stuff. I'm building a custom business planner to set your goals and track all your expenses and all these things, so you have a really nice place to keep all your business stuff when you're ready to do your taxes. I'm doing worksheets, we're doing activities, we're doing templates, like I said, live group coaching. And just so you get a sense of what value is here, I charge $397 for a 90-minute one-on-one coaching session. So in 90 minutes, maybe we can get through one of these topics. Maybe we can get through, how to embrace the entrepreneurial mindset. Or maybe we can get through how to manage your finances as a business owner. You're getting all of this stuff for $497. But today, because I'm like, I need to make this even more accessible to you because there's so much value here, and I don't want you to think that, you're not worth the investment, because you are. Especially if you want to build a business that's going to give you generational wealth. I'm actually taking off an extra $100 only until December 10th if you use the coupon code Dinero at registration. Okay? $397 is literally what I charge for a one-on-one coaching session of 90 minutes. This is at least 8 or 9 sessions worth of time with me for the price of one. So, just putting that out there. So if you want to find out more about my program, it's at sidehustlemoguls.com. I would love for you to hop in my DMs, ask me questions. If you are not sure if this course is right for you, I will let you know right away. Just let me know where you're at. I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. If it doesn't make sense for you, I totally get it. But if this is something that you've been thinking about, when is like the best time to start a new idea? I feel like, we're about to reset January 2021. It feels like we got to redo this whole past year. So why not do that? Why not start off like really building intentionality into your plan to build wealth? Okay. So like I said, sidehustlemoguls.com. Hop in my DMs if you have any questions. There's payment plans available too. So if you want to, participate in that, that's fine. And yeah. Okay. So let's recap real quick. 8 steps to wealth building. Create a spending plan. Adopt a value-based money mindset. Pay off high interest rate debt. Create an emergency fund. Invest. Protect your assets. Estate planning. And earn more and diversify your income. Okay? So Q&A. Questions. Let me know. If you have questions, let's hop in the questions here on the, let's see, the webinar. All right. So first question, if the goal is to retire before 59 and a half, would you still focus on retirement accounts? I would say yes. You still definitely need to be investing in a 401k and Roth IRA, even if you want to invest, even if you want to retire way before 59 and a half. And the reason why is because those accounts have tax advantages that you're not going to get if you just put everything in a brokerage account, right? Brokerage accounts, you can put the money in, you can take it out whenever you want, but there are tax advantages to retirement accounts that honestly you just can't pass up. And there are strategic ways for you to access this money before 59 and a half. You would definitely have to work with a CFP, somebody particularly who is really well versed in the fire space. And I have a couple references for that. So if you need financial support from a professional that knows how to handle and structure your investments in a way that is going to support you retiring early, let me know. I'd be happy to give you some references. Can this 0% balance transfer work with student loans and car loans? Yes, I believe it does work with car loans. I would have to follow up with you and find out if you can actually do that with student loans. But yes, I've seen people do it with car loans too. One thing that I would say is if you are thinking about your student loans and you want to take an opportunity to assess if refinancing might work for you, because refinancing was actually the way that I got out of student loans at about 10 years ahead of schedule. I refinanced my student loans 4 times with SoFi. And every time I did that, I knocked down the interest rate and I knocked down the repayment term length. So that was a really smart move for me. Now, obviously, if you're thinking about participating in the PSL program or the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program, you don't want to refinance because you're going to lose out on those perks. But if that's not something you're worried about, right now the interest rates are super low. So it might be a good opportunity to investigate refinancing. And it doesn't cost you anything. Okay. My company offers a traditional and Roth 401k. Should I split my contributions between these two? And if so, what should the split be? So I can't necessarily answer what you should be doing because obviously I don't know your financial situation. I will tell you what I do. So as a business owner, I do generate a lot of extra income, as I've indicated to you guys. And so I don't do Roth, believe it or not. I do strictly traditional because I'm trying to lower my tax liability today. Yeah, guys. So SoFi was the company that I recommended for student loan refinancing. So yeah, so I do strictly traditional 401k contributions because I'm lowering my tax liability today by lowering my adjusted gross income because all the money that I'm putting into traditional is pre-tax. So it kind of hides it from the IRS for now, and then I'll deal with it later. But if you are on the lower income scale, Roth is probably the way to go. Like if you're younger, Roth is probably the way to go because you're probably going to make more money as you build your career, and more money, more problems, more money, more taxes. So put your money in a Roth if you're on the lower end of your income scale, and obviously be mindful of the fact that there are income limits for Roth accounts. So if your job offers a 401k, should you open a separate IRA? Should you do it with the same company, or how would you know is the best one for you? So if your job offers a 401k, you should absolutely still open an IRA if you have the money to also, do that. I think that, if I'm thinking about like what makes sense in my brain, an IRA is just so much easier psychologically to max out. Right? It's $6,000 for the year versus a 401k is $19,500, and it can feel like, how the hell am I going to save that much money? But it feels a lot easier to look at $6,000 over a 12-month period and be like, okay, if I can find $500 every month in my budget, I can do this. So I think an IRA is really good, like to get practice as being a disciplined investor, putting money away every month. As far as the companies, it doesn't really matter, honestly, to me, and like what company you use. If you use the same one that your job uses, like my husband has his 401k through Fidelity at work, and he also has his IRA through Fidelity. I have my workplace 401k is like through some random company. I can't even tell you who it is, but my IRA is with Vanguard, and My brokerage is with Fidelity. So it really depends. Like whatever you want to do, it's up to you. If you decide that you don't like a brokerage that you're working with, you can always switch. They have a process for transferring over to different brokerages. Just make sure you're aware of any fees or something like that that you might incur based on how long the account's been open. But yeah, you can definitely do your due diligence and find the place that works for you. So will this PowerPoint presentation be available after? So I'm actually going to be uploading this to my YouTube channel. So if you don't follow Yo Quiero Dinero podcast on YouTube, definitely follow because you can watch it over there. What's a 529 college plan? Okay, so a 529 college plan is a tax advantage savings account for college expenses, and also you can use it for like private school expenses, and you can use it to repay student loans up to $10,000. You can use it for all kinds of costs that are associated with college. So it's a great way to invest money for the specific purpose of supporting someone's financial education. And you don't have to be the parent. Like I have one for my niece. You can open one for a child in your life if you're not a parent. It could be a cousin, it could be a nephew, a niece, whatever you want. You can even open one for yourself. Maybe you're thinking about going to college, I don't know, 10 years down the road, and you're like, I want to invest this money to see if I can get a better return than just like having it sit in a bank account. So, and you can transfer ownership of a 529. So let's say you have like 2 children and one decides that they don't want to go to college. You can just transfer ownership to the other child if they're going, and then they can get access to that. How can I connect with product brands to pay if I start a vegan food blog? So that's actually something that I cover in my course. So if you want to connect with brands, I have a whole segment about how to pitch yourself to brands, how to get sponsored content, opportunities, how to become an influencer, basically. So that's something that I teach in my course. How is the money collected from your blog, podcast investments? Does it go straight to your bank account? Yeah, so for the most part, I get paid by direct deposit from all these vendors that I work with. So I have a separate business bank account that all of my money goes into, and that's super important, guys. You got to separate your business income from your personal income, because otherwise doing your taxes, oof, gives me chills. It's just so painful. Don't do it. If you live with someone, can you buy one kit and both be in the same group coaching? I mean, yeah, I'm fine with that. That's okay. I'm cool with it. I'm not going to be a jerk. What website, host, or even blog classes do you recommend to start a blog? Okay, so I definitely recommend, first off, going to my YouTube channel, Side Hustle Summit video, how to start a blog that actually makes money. That's my video, and it's about an hour long, and it walks through the websites that you should be looking at for hosts, and it's an overview of how to start a blog. So if that doesn't lead you where you need to go or where you want to be, just send me a DM and I can give you additional resources for that. If you can refer some CFPs with experience in fire. Yeah, so if you can send me a DM, I would be happy to refer you some CFPs that specialize in fire, because it is a subset of the investing world, and there's a lot of different rules and regulations that they need to have experience with in order to make sure they're setting you up for success. Can you start a Roth now because you're lower income bracket and then switch? And then switch to a traditional IRA when your income. So you can have a traditional and a Roth. You don't need to necessarily switch them. So I have a traditional Roth and I have I have a traditional IRA and I have a Roth IRA. So you can contribute to them as you see fit based on how your circumstances change. There is a limit on how much income you can earn and still be able to deduct your IRA contributions, your traditional contributions. So I don't know what that cap is off the top of my head, but I know once I started making a certain amount of money, any money that I was contributing to my IRA didn't matter, because I also have access to a 401k at work. So there's this stipulation that if you have access to a 401k and you are at a certain limit, traditional IRA contributions are not tax deductible. It's a little complicated. So I would definitely recommend talking to a CFP or a CPA, and I can recommend both of those. Just send me a DM. All right, guys, I'm starting to lose my voice. Dios mío. Okay, can you talk about choosing not to own and still building wealth. Oh yeah, so I talk about this a lot, guys. So I am a renter. I've been a renter since I rented most of my life, but I was a homeowner from 2016 to 2019. And I bought a two-family home. So I was living in one unit and renting the other unit. It was a top and bottom. Um, Honestly, for me, I wasn't prepared financially for home ownership and the costs that come with that. Some of the things that I did that I would not recommend: buying a house with 3.5% down. I literally only saved enough for 3.5% down payment. No emergency fund, no money for property tax increases, no money for repairs if something happened. And so in the first like 30 days of living in the house, I had already come out of pocket several $1,000s, upwards of like $4,000 or $5,000, because the basement flooded 2 weeks after I moved in, and we found out that somebody had poured cement down the sewer pipe, so it was like 95% blocked. I had to replace the sewer pipe. There was a brand new heating system boiler that was installed, and the contractor did not do what he was supposed to do because the installation of the heating element was part of the home sale. And I had to find somebody to repair it because the contractor wouldn't honor what he said. He just disappeared. So I did not have money to deal with a lot of the crazy shit that happened. My property taxes went up by $2,000 over 2 years, and this was in New Jersey. So, if you live in New York, New Jersey, California, that property taxes are wild. And so, yeah, I was not financial. I was still in debt. I was still in credit card debt. I still had a bunch of student loans. And I honestly feel like when I reflect on it now, I bought the house because I got married, and that's what you do. You get married, you buy the house, you have the kids. And it wasn't a smart thing for me to do. And on top of that, when I sold the house, I actually had to pay $10,000 to sell it because I couldn't even sell it for what I bought it for. So all in all, real estate was not a good vibe for me. Will I never buy again? Absolutely not. Like I'm saving money to buy my parents their retirement home, which is going to end up being my rental property at some point again. But I'm obviously in a completely different space. I'm a successful business owner at this point. I'm debt free. I have a 6-month emergency fund. I have my investments. I have all the things in place now, so that when I decide to do it, I'm going to be doing it with at least 20% down. And just being a lot more cognizant of the fact that real estate is not necessarily, especially your primary home. Your primary home is not an investment. It's a liability, because when you calculate your net worth with that big ass mortgage, you're going to be in the red. And so it's important to understand that. The only time you're potentially making money as a real estate investor is if you're actually buying other properties and people are paying you to live in them, and you don't have, the liability of necessarily having to pay them out of pocket yourself. But even then, you have to plan for things like vacancies, or like, what if your tenants destroy your apartment, or what if the building burns down? I mean, so many things can happen. And I think for me and my personality, I just have accepted that real estate is always going to be something for me that I don't see necessarily as an investment, because that's just not where my mind's at. When I think of investments, I think of stocks and more things that are more appealing to my personality. So that's just how I roll. All right. I have a retirement account with Fidelity that I no longer contribute to because I left that job. What should I do with that money? Oh my God, please roll it over. Roll that money over, because it's probably getting charged fees, because that's what happens when you leave a job and you leave your money there. They start charging you fees because you're not an employee, so they don't owe you anything anymore. And you can end up having that whole balance like disappear in fees. So please roll that over to an IRA. Figure out what brokerage firm you want to do it. They will have customer service that can walk you through that. Hop on the phone with them. Do not let that money sit there. That's cray. Okay, guys. So we are over an hour. I just want to thank you guys so much. Is it ever too late to roll it over? I mean, if it's at 0, yes, but no. The sooner the better. You can roll it over at any time. Any other questions on the chat? Thank you so much for sticking with me, guys. I really appreciate you. And I hope that you learned something today. I hope that this sparks conversations for you. And like I said, if you have any questions about any of the material that we covered, definitely send me a DM. You want to find out more about my course, go to sidehustlemoguls.com and subscribe to the podcast. I would love to have you as a listener. We have so much free content information there. We're just trying to educate y'all. Like, we're trying to create this community and this space where you can come and talk about money and not be ashamed and just be empowered. That's why we're here. Okay. Thank you guys. I'll see you soon.